Hi, so this video is all about loosen up the hips and releasing through sort of that tightness into the hip flexors after maybe long walks or anything that is repetitively done. So could be any sports, but mainly walking, and especially when we do lots of walkings, because of the repetitive movements, it creates sort of lots of attention into our joints, especially for the hips. So just to remind you at the beginning of the practice that don't want to focus too much necessarily on a really forced stretch and opening the hips in a kind of more forceful way, but the opposite, sort of bringing more into this sort of brain to muscle connection to strengthen that brain to muscle connection, meaning that we're going to be using lots of more somatic movements, which they are slow and gentle, and sort of the reconnecting and rebuilding the relationship with the body, because that's all it is. It's what I've got, we're going to be using a wall. So this is going to be our support, and then we've got just the one cushion. So that's all you need. And then cushion, some sort of good size of a cushion that if you place it under your head, it goes all the way sort of towards the neck, so it supports. Okay. So we're going to turn towards the wall, finding yourself kind of not too closer to the wall, but I think there is always the first time how far we need to be. It depends how the hips feels when we start sort of bringing them into more crossed legs. So I would start with the feet a tiny bit. They don't have to be exactly ankle aligned with the knees. So we wanted to have a knee sort of hip width, but we're going to take the feet a little bit of more higher. And then you can sort of, we'll start shaking. So shaking kind of releases the tension into the legs in this point. We have our body is completely in horizontal position, which is great because it will relax as our upper body, and that's what we want throughout. We wanted to have a cushion and next to it supports. So head and neck is supported by the cushion. You want the shoulders to sort of kind of bringing more down towards the floor, and then spreading the shoulder blades. And then as you're shaking, your hands could be just naturally onto the thighs. And then we're going to go and extend the legs a little bit higher, so we can start bringing a little bit of movement into the hips. So first we shake the hips with the knees bent. When we extend the legs, really gently take a time. So if you did a little bit faster like this to start with, and then slow down. Inhale as the toes come inwards. Exhale as the toes come out. So that is your external rotation. So every time we'll focus on the release through the hips, we wanted to exhale. So on an in breath, we inhale. On an out breath, we exhale. And we can slightly even pause into that exhalation, because that will help us to lengthen the breath and then releasing the tension tiny bit more. So I would bend the knees now. If you're doing a little bit more, as you can see, a little bit of faster, then I would bend more knee. If the knees are a little bit straighter, if you bring the toes outwards and externally rotating, there is a little bit more sort of the pressure onto the hips. So you want it to do slower. Okay? And then again, we're going to bring the legs a little bit more bent. Shake through your thighs. And we're going to come and bring in this. So we start with a sort of more, we call this reverse pigeon pose, where safely we're going to focus on the left leg first, left hip first, because I find the left side sometimes feels a little bit looser. So you can cross the legs, little bit point the toes, and then we're going to start sliding the leg down onto the thighs, or onto your right thigh. Start bringing that right foot on the wall, a little bit lower, so sliding that foot down until that feels, you start feeling more sort of tensioning, more sort of that sensation into the right hip. Your leg might be here or a little bit lower. So I want you to just remind yourself that we want it to be around 75 to 85% range of the motion. Now we don't want to go too far to 100%, otherwise sometimes it feels too much, that we start forcing something. We try to force to open, which is never a good thing. And also sometimes we lose the breath because when it becomes too much, we just feel, it starts feeling quite uncomfortable. So we just wanted to find where we are at the moment. So we're going to so my left elbow is down on the mat, the left hand is just naturally somewhere onto your thigh or wherever that it kind of fits. Your right elbow down, right hand onto the abdomen, so you can actually feel what's happening with the breath, and you will follow the breath. So on an inhale, breathe into your hand, and on an exhale, as the hand goes down, as your navel moves downwards towards the spine, start lifting the heel away from the wall. Now you will actually notice if there is the space a little bit more to slide the toes downwards. If there is no more space, because the sensation will be quite a lot on the left hip, then stay as it is. So exhale there as you're lifting the heel. This is your exhale. And then release that heel. And then we'll bring the knee a little bit more in. Take another breath in. And then exhale, lift the heel, open the hip. So there's a 3 action that's happening here, or 3 things that you can focus on. 1 is into your heel, 1 is into the abdomen, and 1 onto your knee. So when we're inhaling, we're only inhaling into the hand, your right hand, as the belly rises. Then when you exhale, the abdomen drops, heel lifts, and then hip opens. And you want to really breathe out towards the outside of the left hip. And then again, the heel comes down. You breathe in into the hand. So we can use the diaphragmatic breathing. Exhale, lift the heel up. Abdomen, your navel drops down towards the spine. The hips opens. And then again, drop the heel. Inhale into your hands. This slightly left leg as well, slightly loosen up. And then when you exhale, the navel draws down towards the spine, lift the heel, maybe even lifting the leg in this time. Bringing it all the way a little bit away from the wall. Breathing out towards the right hip. Softening even through the shoulder, because now we don't have support from the wall. Stretching through that leg. Bending that leg maybe 3/4. And then tiny bit of a circling here. Make sure that your shoulders are relaxed here. So yes, there is quite lots of sort of activation through the hips and through your abdominal muscles here. And then circle. If you want to do 3 more circles, circle there. If you start feeling any discomfort, more discomfort or pinching into the hips, stop. Bring the foot back onto the wall. Extend the leg. Bring the leg, slide the left leg back. You can do tiny bit of more opening through the hips, sort of in, toward toes in and out. Even I would go, before we moved and focus onto the other side, bending the knees, so where ankles align with your knees, and then just shake. Okay, now shaking is let the gravity work for you, where all of it, when you shake, it shakes from your psoas muscle. So now we're not active at all, everything shakes off, releases through the hips, really letting all of the tension moves away. And then we're going to bring the legs back up a little bit straighter, and then let's change the side. So right leg crosses, your ankle crosses there, and then safely we slide the leg down. So towards a little bit more onto the left thigh, sliding the left foot onto the wall, and then we're having that stopping point. So you have a stopping point where you just feel like it's enough, there is enough sensation into the right hip. Again, elbow stays down onto the mats, and then just resting, your left hand can come onto the tummy. Inhale into your left hand as it resting onto your tummy there. And as you exhale, release the belly down, your navel goes down towards your spine, slightly contracting, lifting the heel up and opening the right hip. So that's what's happening on an exhale. And again, release the heel. Inhale back towards your left hand. Nice big belly as it rises. Exhale. Lift the heel up, open slightly the hip. Belly falls. Inhale. So that there's a little bit close in your hip. As you're inhaling into your left hand, and exhale, lift the heel up, open the hip. And those exhale could be quite long, because more you exhale, longer the exhale is, more release you will feel from the hip. And you will naturally open that hip. Naturally will sort of bring the more spaciousness there. So inhaling in, exhale, lift the heel up, open the hip, and try not to push if you feel a little bit tight on this side. Inhaling in, into the left hand, and this time we're going to lift the leg up, so maybe even bring that left hand under the knee. Let's flex that foot, extend that leg, flex, point, and then we a little bit soften the knee, so it's almost like a 3/4, and then breathe out towards that hip, and then bring that thighs, left thigh in towards the chest. Find that sensation a little bit more. Even we could do a little bit of a circling, anti-clockwise. And then again we release that left foot, left ankle onto the wall, sliding safely that leg all the way to straight, bringing the hip width, the same what we started, out and in, out and in. So out your toes, external rotation of the hips, and in, out and in. And then we're going to go turn the body a little bit into the butterfly. So we come, I know we are not very close to the wall, so we might not touch the feet completely onto the wall, but open a little bit through the hips. But what we can do, as we're going to go a little bit lower down, we could bring it sole of the feet together. Maybe you need to a little bit readjust so that it feels okay, your toes there. So try not to squash them towards the wall. And then rest those hands onto the outer thighs. Let the shoulders, release the shoulders down. Relax the shoulders, spread the shoulder blades down towards the floor. Rest those elbows, hands go a little bit higher so the shoulders relax a little bit more. Especially when your wrists are a little bit higher than your elbows. Take a moment to breathe into the outer hip, but also into the inner legs. Now we bring your hands under, inside of your outer hips. Place the hands there. So the back of the hands point into your sit bones. And we're going to gently, very gently do a little bit of a sort of butterfly moves. Up and down, up and down. Only that it feels okay. Keep going higher if it feels too much. Safely. And then bring the legs back in. Squeeze it in. Rock from side to side. Bring the feet onto the side. Hips towards the left if you're rolling onto your right. Take your hands, however that feels comfortable, onto the maybe somewhere here, onto the elbow, sorry, onto the shoulder. And then we're going to safely turn, so onto the side. So we're starting sort of lifting ourselves from onto the one hip. Now you're going to slide that big cushion you've got under you. So your pelvis is elevated. And then we're going to cross the legs. Little bit of sort of movements from side to side. Your hips are, your pelvis is elevated, knee can go slightly down. So slide the hands more inside your thighs, then go out of the knees, outer thighs, hips, back here. Gently press down and then take the hands into the prayer. Take a big breath in. And I like you to, when you're bowing, so you're bowing towards, like, you're saying to yourself, like, thank you for the time that you allow for this movement, so this practice. And then see where it takes you. Stay if that feels enough as you lower yourself down. Or you can even bring your hands a little bit lower onto the floor. And then if there is a space, if you feel that it's okay for your knees and hips, then bending the elbows, lower yourself down. And maybe you might be a little bit higher, that's okay. Just breathe inside your inner hips, inner legs and outer hips towards your knees. And then come up. And then we'll bow again. And thank you for joining me.